Hello and welcome back to the 4Q podcast. I'm going to blow your mind with today's podcast. I just know I am. So before we get into it, welcome back to our loyal listeners. I'm so glad you're here and taking time for yourself today. And for those who are new here, just a reminder, my name is Sheena Shui. I'm a business mentor and burnout therapist who specializes in burnout, anxiety, and relationships and helps those high-achieving women build businesses, careers, and lives of their dreams. All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to blow your mind. So we're going to listen to a sound, and I just want you to listen and ask yourself what this sound is. Okay, had a little listen. Take a minute to ask yourself, or a second to ask yourself what that sound is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to frame this to you as that it's actually rain. So I want you to listen to the sound again, but remember that now that you know what it is, it's actually rain. Okay, you can hear it now, right? It's a bit clearer. But, oh yes, there's a but. What if I told you that sound engineers have actually revealed that they use fried foods and in fact fried chicken a lot of the time for rain sounds? I'm going to play this again and I want you to think about fried food, and I just want you to remember this is the exact same sound. Pretty crazy, right? So why is this important to our personal development, to our businesses, to our relationships, how we interpret a sound? Because in psychology, we talk about framing. So, and the priming effect. So the priming effect is if I show you a series of green lights and I flash a red light at you, but I have to ask you, was that red or green? You're more likely to say that it was a green light because you've been primed with already green lights, versus if I just asked you that from the get-go, was it green or red? If that makes sense to you, so that it's a neutral thing. The priming effect is if I show you something before you go into a situation, you're going to perceive it that way. I'll give you another example of a priming effect in corporate. Let's say you start a job and whoever's training you tells you that, oh, but you don't want to cross Terry. Terry's a bitch. You're now primed to think that Terry is that. And so any sort of small thing that Terry now does, you're going to have that added lens of Terry's a bitch, okay? Right? But if we, again, primed you with, oh, Terry's super lovely. She's a little bit quiet, but she's super lovely. Terry might do those exact same actions like, looking at someone or staring at someone, but not really saying too much, like resting bitch face. If someone says she's lovely, she's just a bit quiet versus she's a bitch, you're going to interpret that bitch face that resting face, that facial expression, their mannerisms, completely different. And so how this affects us personally as well is coming back to our self-concept and how we perceive the world. If we perceive, I'm so lucky, my self-concept is I'm so lucky, lucky things happen to me all the time, you're going to walk into situations with optimism, positivity, lightness, airiness. And if we think about, if you're sort of a restaurant waiter and, you're coming to the end of the shift and you feel like doing something good. You're like, you know what, next customer who gives me a good tip or is nice to me, I'm just going to give them an extra serve of fries or the voucher or something like that. If the person who goes into the restaurant with lightness, airiness, I'm lucky attitude, they're probably going to be really lovely towards the waiter and to the restaurant and go, oh, we're so happy that we got in, blah, blah, blah. They're grateful. Versus the person who's like, oh, I'm not that lucky. Things always seem to happen for me. They're not going to have that same lightness in their energy, both from a psychological and spiritual perspective. They are going to have more of a whatever happens, really kind of dragging down energy. So if something lucky was to happen that night, like a free voucher or a free set of fries or drink token or something, it is more likely to go to the person who's got a lucky energy, a lucky self-concept. And so I want you to remember this, because how we perceive the world is framed by how we perceive ourselves. So, something personally I've had to work on, and I still continue to work on, is I'm super likable. I'm a likable person. And that's just because, again, in my childhood and things like that, I had friendships break down, things happen where I felt unlikable, like I didn't fit in. And any time I had a relationship or friendship breakdown, or again, using social media for my business, every time I received negative feedback of some kind, it would reinforce that idea of I'm not charismatic or I'm not likable, when in fact, I wasn't looking for the evidence contrary to that. And so both through therapy and spiritual practices and personal work, because I think healing does not happen in isolation. I could give you all the tools under the sun, but it needs to be implemented with a therapist or a mentor. So I really did do a lot of this through my own therapist, as well as working on myself and being mindful of my negative core beliefs. And if you don't know about negative core beliefs, just search core beliefs at the top of this podcast and you'll find that episode. Really helpful for self-concept and understanding this. So I've done work on that. And so I'm walking into situations going, I am charismatic, I am likable. And now, instead of looking for evidence that supports the not likable, I'm looking for evidence that supports the charismatic, likable part. And there was all these things I was ignoring. I remember one of my friends told me, she goes, oh, Sheena, I remember being so envious of you in high school because you just seem so popular. Like you just seem to be friends with everyone. I can tell you right now, I did not feel that way. I didn't feel popular. I didn't feel like I was friends with everyone. In fact, I often had my guard up. I often felt like people didn't like me. And so I had some massive walls there. And I really struggled to know how much to let people in or not. Like I would overstep and overshare or not share anything because I was just I don't know where I stand with people. I wasn't natural in my socializing because I was overthinking it rather than just being. I was very much playing the part or trying to be what people wanted me to be rather than discovering who I was. And that's really normal in teenage years as part of psychological development, because you don't really know who you are until you're in your 20s, 30s, even 40s. However, there was all that stuff around not likableness, not fitting in, etc. And that really played a part in my own journey with social anxiety too, because you can imagine if you go into situations thinking that, you're going to be socially anxious. So side note, do you think medication would make that go away? No. So again, just my little, you all know I have a holistic approach to psychology and mental health, because if we don't acknowledge what's going on in the symptoms, it's just going to keep getting worse. And so coming back to framing, the priming effect, all of that, that sound at the beginning, I could tell you it was all these different sounds, and that is what you will hear the sound as. And so I want you to be very mindful that you actually can choose what you want to see in a situation, in a relationship, in a person, in life. You actually can start to practice choosing how you want to frame situations. And I want to emphasize the word practice because it takes time to build the belief. A belief, as Abraham Hicks has said, a belief is just a thought that has been thought many, many times. So if you want to believe, I'm so lucky, I'm charismatic, I'm likable, opportunities always come my way, the craziest things happen in the best possible way, at the best possible time for me, you will have to consciously repeat that to yourself over and over and over until it becomes automatic, aka a belief. So again, because we love an analogy around here, if you ever are friends with a counsellor, psychologist, social worker, therapist, anything, we have an analogy for everything. So get used to that, or a story or whatever. So, but again, the best analogy to think of it is that when you're first learning how to drive a car, you really have to think about, where do I put my foot on the pedal? What do I press? How do I slow down? Mindful of my mirrors, mindful of the other cars. And now, if you've been driving for a while, you might drive between two locations and don't even know how you got there. Have you ever had that where you go, oh my gosh, I do not remember this drive at all, but somehow I got here safely? It becomes so automatic because you practice day in, day out, every single day. It started as a conscious practice until it became unconscious. So it's the same with the priming and framing of your life. You might have to consciously choose how you want to see life, consciously choose how you want to perceive people, consciously choose how you want to show up in relationships until it becomes an automatic belief. I'm giving you some space to take this in, to really understand that how you frame yourself in situations is going to frame how your life and your business is. Because again, I'm a business owner. If I held on to the belief that, you know, I don't fit in, or I'm not likable, or I'm not charismatic, imagine every time I have to go to a networking event, or every time I have to make sales, or every time I am posting on social media, or again, something that I think, I don't know if it'll ever go away because it's hardwired into us, but whenever I get trolls on social media as well, yeah, it's that, how do I want to show up for that? Because if I have that old story continuing to show up, it's really going to affect how I can do all of those things versus the news story. I get to choose the news story. I get to create the news story. The news story is now. So, of course, just like any neural pathway, there's going to be times where you accidentally slip back into an old story. Maybe you haven't slept well that week. Maybe there's a lot of emotions in the air. Maybe things aren't going well. That's often when we slip into an old story because it's almost hard to hold the new belief and to keep on the new neural pathway that we're creating. And this is when it is the most vital time to tap into mentorship, to tap into a therapist. Remembering that therapy isn't just about problems or things like that. It's personal development. I want to be the best athlete I can in life, mentally, physically, emotionally. I want to be the best friend, mother, parent, wife, partner, business owner. That all takes a level of training that can come from a therapist or mentorship. So I just want to remind you how important you framing and priming situations as you go into them is, how that relates to your core beliefs and your stories you tell about yourself, and how it can absolutely transform your life. So again, walk away with this: the priming and framing effect, your stories and core beliefs, and that a belief is just a thought that you've thought about many, many times, and something that you have to start with as a conscious action until it becomes an automatic, unconscious action. Amazing, beautiful souls. I am so, so thankful that you showed up today. Get on the damn email list because, and you can do that by doing the free quiz at the bottom or just join any of the links on my website, because the Tranquil Trailblazer membership is coming. I am so excited to launch this. Whether you're just a high achiever, whether you just want to work on yourself and you don't have a business at all, this is going to help you. But particularly for business owners where you really need your mind to be sharp, this is it. You can run your business without burnout, without anxiety. You can run your career, your life, your parenthood, your partnerships without the struggles around burnout and anxiety that you're having. So I cannot wait for you to join that. I will see you in the next episode of the 4Q podcast. And don't forget, be kind to yourself today, and congratulations for putting yourself first right here, right now, and taking the time for you. I'll see you in the next episode of the 4Q podcast.